Hey everyone, welcome to the Community Toolkit Roundup. We're excited to be here and talk with you today and share all the goodness that we have in the Community Toolkits. So let's introduce ourselves quick and we'll get started. I am Michael Hawker, also known as the XAML Llama, thus the hat. I'm a senior software engineer and maintain the Windows Community Toolkit and am a Windows developer ambassador at all my other times. And with me is Sergio here.
Hey folks, I'm Sergio Pedri. I'm a senior software engineer here at Microsoft. I'm in the Microsoft Store team, and I also lead the .NET Community Toolkit.
And my name is Gerald. I'm a software engineer on the .NET MAUI SDK, but also working with our wonderful community to maintain the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, which is the thing that we're going to talk about here, right? That's an important thing. So, you know, I'm kind of like on both, which really helps making...
That's how we all are.
Yeah. So... Oh, we need to go closer together. Okay, we're just
because I see it here.
We're friends. We're friends. We like each other, so it's fine. Who else are here? Because we're going to talk in a little bit here about some other toolkits. Because we grew the family. Last year we did a session which is very similar to this one, and since then we have some news. So we gained a couple of people too who couldn't be here today. Adrian Hall here in spirit. I think he's in the chat. So Adrian, thank you so much for joining us. He's available to answer some questions about the Datasync toolkit. We'll see that in a little bit. And Aaron, you probably already have seen him with the .NET Aspire toolkit, community toolkit. So there's a dedicated session for that one.
It's probably already happened, right?
Yeah, that already happened. Yeah. So you've already seen
it on
that.
YouTube. Yeah. Unfortunately, we probably wouldn't have room for them all here in the studio.
That's
we need
true.
a bigger studio.
And of course, and you, right?
And you,
everyone, because it's the Community Toolkit.
Exactly.
We're doing this for you, but we're also doing this together with you because you can see it here. I think we have a number later on how many contributors we actually have, like across the different toolkit projects. But we have seen, at least at the .NET MAUI side, we'll get into the specifics for how the organization works overall. But for the .NET MAUI side, we've seen a lot of amazing community contributions. We gained a couple of community members who were like, I want to, dedicate some time as a maintainer and be a part of this. So that's really great. But if you just have a little bit of time where you're like, this bug really annoys me, and you just fix that, we're already super happy with that, right?
Yeah. So let's go over what we're going to be talking about today.
Yep, let's just cover the agenda very quickly. So we're going to cover 3 main topics today. So first, we're going to go over what the Community Toolkit organization is and which individual toolkits are part of it. Then we're going to cover the contribution side of things. So like if you want to get started today and you're not sure where to start from, if you want to contribute a new change or a bug fix or something, we're going to help you out with that. And then lastly, we're going to have time for community chat and Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, we can help you with those.
Yeah. And so, Gerald, why don't you tell us about the Community Toolkit org?
Yeah. So we are, like I already mentioned, we have kind of like an overall organization. So we share, actually maybe a little bit back up, a little bit of history. So I think you, Michael, were the first, the OG Windows.
I was like the third maintainer of the Windows Community Toolkit, but the Windows Community Toolkit kind of kicked things off.
Right.
We'll talk about what
exactly.
that is in a minute.
Yeah.
But, and really
so
grown since. Yeah.
Exactly. So and now we've already talked about it. We have a couple of other projects that wanted to do the same thing, but maybe slightly different. So we're just sharing organization, sharing resources. Like we need build pipelines, we need all that stuff, and that's like super similar. We need our packages out there that need to be secure. Security is super important. So we need to have the certificates, the signing keys, all of that. We share those things, which is super convenient. We share our experiences, obviously, and allow GitHub organization and all the kind of stuff. But we still do our own thing and we run kind of like our own project. And it all has to do, of course, with like .NET technology, right? That's why we're here. .NET Conf. It's all open source on GitHub, MIT license, and part of the .NET Foundation.
So, as we've been talking about this, we have 6+ projects in the toolkit organization, so of varying different sizes and degrees of maturity from over the years. We've been an organization for 8 years now, and we have 115 packages up on NuGet, which has over 37 million downloads. So these are things that everyone's using across the board in their .NET applications. If you're using .NET, pretty much one of these toolkits has something that's going to help you. So make your lives simpler. Use a toolkit. That's what they're here for. We have 15,000 stars on GitHub. We've had over 350 contributors. This is really community driven. It's really thanks to everyone out there that's watching that these things exist and continue to get support from from Microsoft, and we're really excited to be able to work on these things with you and bring these great tools and APIs and controls and everything to developers, so that the power of building something once can be shared by hundreds and thousands of people. It's really great. We've had over 150 releases in the last 8 years across all the toolkits. It's crazy the amount of technology and effort that has gone into these things.
All right, and so with that, let's start having a very quick overview of all the individual components, so all the individual toolkits that are part of the Community Toolkit organization. And we'll just do a very quick overview, and then we're gonna share more in-depth details about each one of them later on. So first, we have the three original toolkits where the Community Toolkit organization, as it is today, started from. So like Gerald mentioned, the Windows Community Toolkit is like the OG toolkit here, and it contains a lot of helpers, like animations, controls, extensions, specifically for Windows developers. So this targets WinUI 2, WinUI 3, and also Euro platform. And we also have the Windows Community Toolkit Labs, which is a place that allows us to quickly experiment and prototype with new ideas and quickly get like a preview package out that we can try out and improve. And there's a lot of components that actually started out from the labs and that then got upgraded, so if you will, to the mainline toolkit.
Right, and your .NET Community Toolkit actually started in the Windows Community Toolkit with the MVVM helpers, and then we spun it off into its own thing, which has completely grown to just really high levels of downloads now. It's I think it's one of the largest packages ever downloaded now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, originally, because we only had the Windows Community Toolkit back then, we just added these new packages there, and then we were like, you know what, this actually just targets general .NET developers. It's not specific to Windows. Let's just pull it out. So I guess that's where the Community Toolkit organization as a whole started from, the idea came from. So yeah, that's the .NET Community Toolkit, which is platform agnostic, and it contains components such as the MVVM toolkit, and then the high performance packages, the diagnostics packages, and more. And then we have the .NET .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, which contains extensions and then controls, behaviors, and markup extensions specifically for MAUI applications.
Yeah. Gerald, you actually started that as the Xamarin Community Toolkit, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this kind of like started. There's fun history everywhere. We don't have time to go over all of it. Find me later and we'll talk about it. So Xamarin, of course, like the predecessor of like .NET MAUI, right? So we started the Xamarin Community Toolkit because it became clear that Xamarin Forms in this case was go to stop at kind of like version 5. We had a couple of experimental things in there. And we needed to split that off so that we were not taking away things from you that were, not fully baked yet. And we still wanted to make them available to you. So we were like, okay, we're going to move that to the Xamarin Community Toolkit, which was already a thing that was attempted before, not really took off, but now we were like, we're going to do this. And so that was just one purpose for it. And we're still doing that way. Like we have controls, but we also have a bunch of stuff. We're XAML based, right? Like primarily. And we have a ton of stuff with like the converters that everyone writes over and over and over again, right? Like you have that converter for a thing in XAML. You write it once for this project. It's too small to wrap it into its own project. So you copy and paste the code, put it in the next project, tweak it a little thing, and now you have two versions. And before you know it, it's kind of like the Troubles. The Troubles, the little things from Star Trek.
Tribbles.
Tribbles. Oh, that was it. Wow, I don't know why that reference came out. So it just multiplies very quickly.
And I mean, that's how all these toolkits started. It's really this collection of helpers that maybe you won't need in every single app, but across your development of different apps, you're going to need something from one of these things at some point.
And kind of like similar to what you were saying with like, hey, we split it up in a package. We have several packages too. So it's like, we're all under kind of like we have the overarching kind of like Community Toolkit umbrella where all of these projects are under. And then per project, we might have also different packages, because what's happening for us is like, hey, we have maybe a media element, which is kind of like a bigger control in itself. But most importantly, that will bring in like references for Android specifically. And we don't want to kind of like push all the references onto people that, are not using the media element. So that's kind of like for us, the decision of like, hey, we're going to split that off into its separate package and then use it like that way. But anyway, controls, behaviors, we have one project that is a little bit bigger too. Also, it's separate project. If you don't like XAML, those people are out there, Michael. I don't know. Like, why?
I mean, I don't know.
Sorry. Trigger warning. But yeah. So, and we have this amazing solution for those people as well. Like, we have a little bit of syntactic sugar, the Community Toolkit markup, C# for markup, so that you can create your UIs for XAML, for MAUI, also without XAML. And then we have the Windows Community Toolkit.
Yeah, and I think Sergio touched on that a bit before. We're going to dive into a little bit more about what the latest news is for these in a second. So why don't we just introduce the new toolkits that are growing, and then we can dive in deeper.
Yeah, perfect. We've already talked about the .NET Aspire toolkit, right? So again, like this is out there. There's a whole session about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. Just go check that out. It was introduced at .NET-Conf, so there's a lot of content on that. Then we have the Datasync toolkit, and actually, what was the previous name? Azure Datasync?
Azure Mobile Apps.
Oh, Azure Mobile Apps. That was it. So that has a new spot with us because that was just a better fit. Again, like we're sharing a couple of infrastructure things and ideas. So Adrian took this project to us. And you have like online offline sync for mobile apps, and also not specific to Microsoft technologies, right? Like again, this also works with like Uno, Avalonia, I think, like all the other things that are out there. And it's just an amazing project to have kind of like all your data needs syncing, right? That's it. And then lastly, we have like the native library interop for .NET MAUI, which is a huge name. And basically, you might also know it as Slim bindings. And this will help you kind of like create bindings to the native libraries on each platform. I'll go into that in a little bit deeper in the other slides.
Yeah. Let's dig into each toolkit a little bit more specifically and talk about like what's kind of the latest news people need to know about each of these things.
Sounds good. All right, so let's start from the .NET Community Toolkit. So like we mentioned, this is a platform agnostic package, so you can use it for any .NET project. Doesn't matter if you're making an app for Windows, for Android, for Mac, or an ASP.NET Core web service. Doesn't matter. You can always use it if there's anything interesting for you there. And it's comprised of several individual packages. So we have the MVM Toolkit, which is our MVM library. We have the high performance package, which contains helpers for dealing with high performance scenarios. So it has helpers for things such as pulling buffers and doing zero location operations like that.
So it doesn't work like I install it and my app becomes high performance?
I really wish that were the case. That would be awesome. Okay. And then we also have the diagnostics package, which contains helpers for efficiently and conveniently validating function parameters. Of course, it's all open source. You can find the code here on GitHub, following the link in the slide. And to give a few more details specific on the MVM toolkit, so it contains a collection of very fast, modular, cross-platform MVVM helpers, and it's specifically designed to be a la carte and easy to use, so that you don't have to structure your entire application in a specific way. You're following any specific pattern. You can just pick and choose the individual components that you want to use, and you can then gradually adopt them into your application and structure your code however, in whichever way works best for you. Of course, it also includes the MVVM source generators, which kind of give you the best of both worlds. So you get to both structure your app with the MVVM architecture, which makes it very modular and easy to test, but also you don't have to deal with all the huge verbose and boilerplate code that is generally associated with MVVM. So you just trigger our source generators, and then they generate all the additional code for you. We also have a lot of analyzers that will gently produce diagnostics to guide you towards writing code in the best. I was gonna say they will yell at you if you write code.
I was gonna say gently. Okay, yeah. I'm not gonna build your project, but
and it's like fix this right now.
And you have the new partial property support that it includes a fixer that will upgrade your project to that new syntax, right?
Yes, yeah. So in the latest preview, which you can try out right now, we added support for partial properties, which are new in C# 13. And of course, previously people would be using fields with the attribute on it, and then we now have a new diagnostic that will suggest, hey, you should probably convert these to partial properties because they will have a whole bunch of advantages. But rather than having to fix each of them manually, you just click on it in Visual Studio, click on the light bulb, and then there's a code fixer that will automatically upgrade all of the usages in your entire solution. So it's super convenient.
And you and I have a talk on how to use the MVVM toolkit tomorrow, and talking about when you wind up WPF. So I'm really excited about that one.
Check it out if you're interested in that.
Yeah,
awesome.
And with that, Gerald?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. I've already spoiled a couple of things, but hey, we have like animations, so pre-built animations that you can use. That always works for your users, right? Like, oh wow, this is a cool animation, and they instantly like your app. Might not be high performance, but it's something. We have a bunch of behaviors, right, very specific to .NET MAUI and how that works. Think of like you can, what is it called, debounce. Whenever you do like a search box or something, you have a slight delay that the user stops typing and then actually starts the search thing. Something that
Really
a lot of apps need to do, right?
Yeah.
If you
use that in the store.
Yeah, so
we have one in the Windows Community Toolkit.
no,
too.
there we go.
Yeah.
No, we
You
need
don't
to
want to
fix
spam
that.
your web API.
Yeah.
Like.
So, and we have a built-in behavior for that, and there's like a big list, right? Like we're on learn.microsoft.com with our documentation. I think we are all there. So you can find the whole list there. Converters, I already touched on that one. Like, hey, for example, you need to do some conversion here and there. We got a ton of them built in, so we got you covered there. That you can just use. They're pre-built. You don't have to do anything there. And then controls, right? That's usually the thing that appeals to the most people. Like, oh, I need this new control, but I don't want to build it myself, which I can totally understand because some of these are a pain to actually build.
Yep.
And here I have two, but we have like several, and these two are on here because these are new in kind of like, hey, since the .NET Conf last year and this year. So we have like a camera view, which is the initial version, but it already like does a lot, which brings in like a little camera preview inside of your app. And you can be like, hey, take a picture for this, right? Like super simple from the outsider perspective, but super hard to actually implement.
Right.
So we're super happy to have that. And the touch behavior, if you've been around for a little bit longer, then you know that was super popular in the Examine Community Toolkit. Now we finally brought it to .NET MAUI. I'll be very honest, there are some things to still iron out, but we got the first version, and that's usually the most important stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because now we actually have to fix it because it's in there.
And what's coming up?
And what's coming up? So we have already implemented in v9.1. We have that out right now already for a little while. We have AOT support, right?
Nice.
That's a big theme for like .NET 9. So we've got that in there already. And V10 is going to be built against .NET 9. So we don't have it like on day one. We have a couple of things to fix up in the build pipeline. And I'm just here, talking to people instead of doing work. So we're going to do that, and we're going to put that out there. And then, quality, we have bug fixes. There's always bug fixes to do.
Yep.
And then whatever you want to do, right? Like we have a way for you to put in proposals, because again, we're doing this for you. So let us know what is important. And we're going to look into building that, or maybe we can do that together in collaboration with you.
Yeah, we'll talk about contributing here in a second. I want to make sure we leave time for questions because we started a little late. All the goodness that you just talked about, the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit for .NET MAUI folks, we have the same sort of things in the Windows Community Toolkit. So animations, behaviors, all these different helpers and extensions and controls that will help you as a Windows developer to build a great app. And so we support both WinUI 2 and WinUI 3, as well as Uno platforms. So it's easy if you're working in one of those technologies to help you migrate to any of those other ones and upgrade your application to target different platforms. If you're using the Toolkit controls with the latest versions after 8.0, like everything's just, you don't have to change anything in the toolkit. It's code that you write to move those platforms. And we have our Windows Community Toolkit Labs, which is where you can get started contributing to the Windows Community Toolkit. So it's kind of our incubation space. And our 8.2 release is coming up soon. We actually just shipped the preview for that on NuGet yesterday, so you can try that out. This has the native AOT support for a WinUI 3. It also has a new switch presenter control and switch converter that I just added in or made improvements to as well. So if we have some time and are running low on questions, I can show a quick demo of that later. But otherwise, we have the new toolkits as well. We'll just flash this info up on screen quick. So we have the Datasync toolkit, which works across all your different UX technologies and gives you that kind of a capability to have that database locally that's synced with your cloud as well. And so you can have it run offline and keep track of the data and then get those changes next time you're connected. So it's really powerful toolkit there that can help you with your data and your apps.
Absolutely. And then the last two, like, hey, we have .NET Aspire, right, with all these things. Full session again. I'm just going to repeat it one more time. One thing I do want to highlight, Rust, like if you've been around for the live streams, there was a little, was it a mistake? Was it intentional? We'll never know. Rust, both the language and the game, now supported with .NET Aspire Community Toolkit, right? And then the native library interop for .NET MAUI, so previously known as slim bindings. And this will really help you to make it a little bit easier because it's still, it's still a hard process to kind of like go through. The way it works, like the whole .NET MAUI stuff works, is we create bindings to interact with like the native APIs on iOS, Android, and Windows, right? This project will make that a little bit easier. easier. Hopefully, people will pitch in, make those bindings available for everyone. Like, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to share that with the world. That's what open source is all about. We got a couple of samples on there already. And whenever you want to start contributing to that, like, hey, you can expand the API service that's there, add new bindings. And what's really cool about this is that you don't have to wrap and bind the whole library that we've done before, but you can also you can only kind of like cherry pick the APIs that you want to use from a certain library, and that's kind of like where it's all made easier.
And Morten said it best with, you get a toolkit, you get a toolkit. There's toolkits for everyone.
Why is that not a meme? Yeah, we should have it in it.
If you're doing .NET development, use a toolkit.
Yeah,
there's stuff here that's help you. It's going to make your life easier. Cut out a lot of code from your applications.
I imagine that's the same for you guys. Like, whenever I go out there to conferences or whatever, or these kinds of things, there will be people like, oh yeah, this is the first package that I installed, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is this not part of the template? So we need to work on that.
Yeah. And let's talk about contributing, right? And how do you get started? And some of it is just using the toolkits, giving us feedback, just, participating in discussions on GitHub, filing an issue if you have a bug, make sure that it's like easy to understand, isolated in a separate repro. It takes a few extra minutes, but it really helps us or someone else in the community to pick that up and try and fix and find a solution to that.
Saves so much time for us to investigate and fixing. Help us help you. So,
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And also that's actually a good point. And we see that a lot with the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. I can only speak to that one. Like that people are super understanding. Like, this is not, at least for us, again, there's a little bit of a difference, I think, but this project is run, also, I work at Microsoft, but this is done in my free time, right? Like, this is not something that's part of my job. It's just because I see the importance of it and I want to help. I am in the .NET MAUI team, so it's easy to kind of like have that synergy going. But this is something that we do in our spare time, and the people in the community even more, like, they have day jobs and they're doing this on top of that. So anything you can do to make our lives easier, that's going to help you, because in the case of bug fixes, we're going to fix it easier, faster. And in the case of like features, hey, help us contribute, do that little thing yourself instead of like kind of like waiting for us, because that's not helping anyone basically. But we see that happening, like even with the docs that are open source too, typos, whatever, like, hey, you missed this little thing right there. People are super helpful. With these.
Docs is a big help. And so let's, I've seen a couple questions in the chat. We're running low on time as we got a little bit of a late start with technical difficulties, so we apologize. But really coming up to GitHub and communicating with us, it's a great place for us to get questions answered. We're also active on Discords. So Ryan asks, will there ever be a Blazor Community Toolkit?
It's a funny question. I think we've had someone, well, because that's how it starts, right? Like, someone has to kind of like own it and be like, hey, I want to have this thing. That's what happened with the other toolkits, and I want to run this. So if someone wants to do that, who knows, if you have a good idea with like, hey, this needs to be in there, then maybe.
I think the biggest thing with us on like deciding whether we're starting a new toolkit is like, like what is that tipping point of you have enough stuff and it makes sense to get out there, and what is the plan, right?
What's
like, who's going to maintain it? How is this going to go beyond, if you disappear, what happens, right? Like, how do you have that sustainability? And that's, still what we're trying to figure out as a growing organization of like, how do we keep sure that momentum goes forward? And I saw Adrian was asking questions about the Datasync toolkit as well. And so the cool thing with the Datasync toolkit is it's just a platform agnostic library. So it's not like UI or sync buttons or anything. You just kind of instrument that into your whatever UI you happen to be using, but it handles kind of the database layer underneath on top of just straight .NET. So I think we're running low on time. I don't know if we have time for another question, because I want to be respectful for whoever might be coming next here in the presentation line. So maybe just flash up the resource slide there for people. So be sure to get .NET.
Get .NET 9. Do it now. And here are all the resources, right? Like we have all the links. Like, hey, if you go basically to the GitHub org, you will find everything you need. Just start there and you will find all the rest that you're interested in. But here are also the direct links to all the toolkits that we've mentioned right here. And of course, get .NET 9. What are you still watching this for? Get .NET 9. All right. So thank you everyone so much. If you have any questions, like, you will find us, and we'll be happy to answer.
Just look for the llama hat.